everyone, welcome back to the Modern Trumpeter Podcast. Today's guest is well known as a lead trumpet player in New York and is an incredible musician and educator. Today we get to hear from Bryan Davis. Bryan Davis is a New York-based trumpet player and teacher who is considered one of the finest lead trumpeters working today. Originally from the UK, he moved to the United States in late 2009 following an early career built in the UK jazz and commercial music scenes and a decade spent touring with major theater productions. Since settling in New York, Bryan has become a mainstay of the city's music scene, currently performing and/or recording with the 8-Bit Big Band, Blood, Sweat and Tears, and the Duke Ellington Orchestra, among many others. His work is featured on 5 Grammy-winning albums. Other recent professional highlights include tour and television appearances with Kelly Clarkson and a tour of Japan with the Persona 5 Special Big Band project. On Broadway, he currently subs at Chicago and Death Becomes Her, with past sub-credits including Boop the Musical, A Wonderful World, Water for Elephants, and Some Like It Hot. Education is an integral part of Bryan's career. He has been an adjunct faculty member at the New School for Jazz and Contemporary Music since 2015 and maintains a busy private teaching studio. As a guest artist and clinician, he has led workshops at institutions across the U.S. and internationally in countries such as Austria, Brazil, Germany, Mexico, and the UK. Through his Airflow Music imprint, Bryan has published 6 instructional books, including 2 volumes each of combination drills and twisted technical studies, and has produced over 300 educational videos on YouTube. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and YouTube for additional content and updates to the projects we have going on. Our biggest project is our full-fledged book called The Modern Trumpeter, A Guide to Building a Versatile and Successful Career. With insights and stories from over 70 professional trumpet players working in the music industry today, this book gives you the tools, mindset, and insider knowledge to turn your talent into a sustainable career. Insights, stories, and behind the scenes of the music industry are provided by the likes of Wayne Bergeron, Bobby Shew, Bria Skonberg, Bijon Watson, Michael Sachs, Bob Malone, Louis Dowdwell, Marcus Printup, Glen Marhevka, Dave Richards, Jay Webb, Jerry Hay, Brian MacDonald, Kiku Collins, Lisa Whitaker, Vince DiMartino, Tony Cadlick, Willie Murillo, Amy McCabe, Randy Breger, and many, many more. The book should be available for purchase at the end of 2026. Subscribe to our mailing list at moderntrumpeter.com to find out more and get updates on when it will be available. Now, here is my interview with Bryan Davis. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Modern Trumpeter Podcast. We appreciate you being here, and we also appreciate our guest today, Bryan Davis. Bryan, thank you for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Jaden. Good to see you.
Yes, you as well. I always like to ask right from the get-go how you first got into the trumpet. Was it something natural? Did it take time to get into, or did you play another instrument first? What was your first experience with the trumpet?
My first experience with the trumpet was playing in school. I guess in the States you'd call it in elementary school, probably. I started when I was about 7 years old.
Okay, wow.
So I've been playing for longer than I care to detail. And so that started out, we had a school music program at that time in England, where I'm from, where if your grades were good, and they did some ear training tests for all the kids, and if your grades were good and you did okay on the ear training, you got the opportunity to play an instrument. And so I chose the clarinet, because what's better than that? And they told me at the time that I wasn't tall enough to play the clarinet. I was a real skinny little short scrawny kid at the time, and I mean, to be fair, the clarinet would have gone down to my knees or something, but it was they told me I wasn't tall enough, so I had to pick something else, and I wound up with the trumpet, and the rest, is they say, is geography.
Wow, what a story. Like wanted to start out on clarinet, you're too short to play the trumpet.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. And so I quickly ended up playing the cornet, actually, because that was a little smaller to hold, because I was a pretty little kid, particularly at that age. And so that got me started. And then we had lessons in school every week.
Oh, wow.
More group lessons to begin with. Yeah, private lessons. That's how we started out. And getting to play a band or an orchestra didn't come until a couple of years down the road.
That's right. I talked to Louis Dowdwell, and he said, "Is like, yeah, you guys do it weird over there." I'm like, I guess so. I don't know, but that makes so much sense of just getting some personal instruction first before you're ever trying to get into a group or anything. Because I'm sure you've seen a middle school band here in the States where there's 15, 20, 30 trumpet players, and there's somebody who's like over here somehow. Sure. Like, that makes so much sense.
I mean, there's pros and cons to both systems. As with anything, the grass is always greener on the other side. So we didn't get into playing music as quickly, which is what tends to happen in the US system. So there's definitely a pro to that. But at the same time, we learned some basic technique and got some stuff going before we were trying to play music, just playing simple melodies and things like that as the early exercises. And so, like I say, pros and cons. I can see the good in both sides.
Yeah, for sure. And so how long did that last before you got into your first band or group?
So I guess I was playing for a year or more before I was allowed in the school orchestra. It was a school orchestra when I was in what we call junior school, when I was probably about 9 years old or something like that. And and at the same time, my teacher, we had this peripatetic music service, which meant that teachers went, there was a brass teacher in the town and he went round to all the schools. And so he was at my school on a Tuesday morning, for argument's sake, and then someplace else in the afternoon in a different school in the region the following day, and so on and so forth. But he was a Salvation Army bandmaster, and he also ran a youth brass band.
Wow.
And so I got in the youth brass band at about the same age as well.
Cool. Great.
So I got to do both of those things pretty early on. And then as I proceeded with that, and we had great exams to take and all kinds of stuff, it's a little more structured, I think. And as I worked my way up through those, got the opportunity to join a local youth orchestra organization, which had a bunch of different ensembles. And so by the time I worked my way through high school, by the time I was 15 or 16, I was playing a different ensemble kind of 5 or 6 nights a week.
Wow.
After school.
Wow. So, did your school programs, were there any school programs, music programs there in the UK, or was it all outside of school?
No, we had music in school as well. We had music class every day in high school. Oh, well, not every day, every week in high school and stuff like that. And as I chose to specialize more in that, I had more music classes and less of other stuff by the time I was finishing up high school.
Okay.
And and then at the same time playing youth orchestra stuff, which was after school. And that was a kind of joint program, basically run by all the different high school music teachers around the area.
Okay.
And I guess it was just because that thing was there. I think partly a lot of people moved to our area to teach music because they knew they had that they could conduct a reasonably good sounding orchestra or concert band or what have you.
Sure. Okay.
So that was partly an incentive for them. I think it was a nice enough area to live in, and there was a lot of music going on. So there were several of us, I mean, just in my year at high school, who have wound up being musicians.
I love it. That's amazing.
So this youth orchestra program we had outside was great. So that was really a nice thing. And so a lot of us got some experience. And then by the time I was about 17, I also jumped up on an opportunity to go and start rehearsing every week with the National Youth Jazz Orchestra in the UK, which met in London every week, which was about 200 miles, I guess, from where I lived. And I would get on the train every Saturday morning at 6 a.m. and get down there in time for rehearsal.
Wow. Well, I mean, when you're playing in a group like that, that's definitely worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. They had an open rehearsal thing, and they were trying to encourage people from around the country to come rather than just kids who were in London.
Yeah.
And so they had a little travel bursary and stuff like that. So myself and one of my high school friends, we jumped on that opportunity, figured out that there was a 2-for-1 train ticket deal from another store, combined the two things, and basically went for free for a year and a half.
Nice. That's great.
So
Wow.
we kind of gamed the system a little bit, but it was good. It worked out.
Yeah.
We were happy with that. The band was happy with that. It was fine. So that was a good thing. And so that was some good experience early on while I was still in high school. To played a couple of gigs with them at that stage. I joined the band later on after I graduated college. But in that early going, it was great because I got to sit next to college and just immediately post-college age players and be in the mix of that and kind of find out what it was like a little bit.
Yeah, that's awesome. So at what point during all these experiences and ensembles and groups, was there ever a moment where you're like, yeah, I want to make this my career in my life? Or did it happen gradually?
I mean, I was always keen on playing. So it kind of happened naturally, really, as I went through. It came to the point when I was applying to colleges, I applied to a couple of things where it wasn't just about music, but I got the best response from all the places that were about music.
Mm.
And so that's where I ended up going. And so it kind of almost self-selected.
Yeah. And where did you end up going for university?
Yeah, I went to Leeds College of Music. So yeah, I grew up in a town called Cleethorpes. And then when I was 18, moved to Leeds and lived there for the following 16, 17 years.
Oh, a long time.
Stayed for college and then kept that as my base. But increasingly, once I was through school, I was on the road a lot. So it was my mailing address as much as anything else.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe you could talk about that for a little bit. I know for a lot of younger players, touring is exciting and they get to go out and do stuff and whatnot. So could you tell us a little bit more about being on the road, some of your first opportunities, and what that was like for you coming out of college and having that type of experience?
Well, I mean, I started off working a lot right as I started college. I joined what was ostensibly a nightclub band.
Mm-hmm.
We would go and play different venues, mostly to begin with around the north of England where we were, and then gradually around the whole country. There was still a thriving network of kind of working men's clubs and town social clubs and things like that that would present bands and comedians and all that kind of, it's kind of a bit of a throwback. It was the end of a bygone era of that kind of entertainment in the UK, which doesn't happen in exactly the same way anymore. But I joined that band in my first year at college and worked with them throughout college and for a couple of years afterwards. And so it wasn't that we were on tour necessarily. We just drove out from the house every day, sometimes 4, 5, 6, even days a week, and would go off and do gigs. But I mean, always 2 or 3 nights a week.
Yeah.
So usually on the weekends and then other things during the week as they came up.
Yeah.
So it became a bit of a juggling act dealing with college and being available for stuff, but It was good. And that got me in front of an audience a lot, and that's an important skill, actually, is learning to deal with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, I mean, it's a different adrenaline. And so you can sit in your college ensembles, and very often they sound great.
Yeah.
But unless you're performing all the time, you can tell the groups, college bands and things like that don't perform all the time because they tend to play their worst in performance because everyone's a little bit nervous and they're not used to doing it.
Yeah.
And so by the time I was dealing with that situation with my college groups, I always felt like I played about as well as any other time, which probably wasn't particularly well, to be fair. But at least I was consistent and I was able to put it out there and just give it the right energy and the right kind of spirit and in a different way to some of my college colleagues at the time.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not sure if that makes sense, but I mean, I think what you get,
I get
what I'm getting towards.
I get it, yeah.
And so just getting used to making sure the parts are played and things get thrown down when they're supposed to is a big part of the learning thing. And a skill as musicians we all have to develop in one way or another.
Yeah. And as you were growing up and getting through college and stuff, did you have an idea of like what type of music you were wanting to play? I know that at least for me, I was like, I don't want no classical, no chamber music, baroque. I was like quintets and anything in that genre. I was like, I'm not playing that. I was like, I'm only going to play jazz and big band, and that's what I want to do. And so without really and I can see you're smiling right now, just like that's not how it works. But did you ever have that mentality, or was it just music is music and you just love playing?
Well, my thing going all the way through was I realized that I needed to be versatile if I was going to work. And so I'd done a lot of classical playing growing up, and so I had some experience there. But I was keener on playing jazz and big band and horn section. That's why I went to college for it.
Sure, yeah.
But I still took the opportunity where it was feasible to play a couple semesters in the college orchestra and things like that, just to keep that stuff in my back pocket, as it were.
Yeah.
But I'm very much of the opinion, which is not shared by that many people necessarily, is that trumpet is trumpet. It's not I'm a jazz trumpet player or I'm a commercial trumpet player. I play trumpet. That's the instrument I make the vast majority of my music with. And so I just want to try and play that thing well. And then through sound matching with other people around me, that leaves me basically versatile enough to play anything.
Interesting.
It's one of the skills you learn within that is blending. I wouldn't want to show up necessarily in an orchestra and be the principal because I don't play it often enough.
Right. Yeah.
But for doing a pop show or something like that, I can disappear into the section playing third trumpet where I need to and then play lead on the pops things.
Yeah.
And when I'm sitting in the section playing second or third trumpet and blending with the guys who play the more classical things all the time, very quickly I can disappear and they don't know that I'm there.
Yeah, that's great. I hadn't thought about if you can blend, you can do in any situation, be in any situation.
Absolutely. And so that's something I always trying to keep front of mind.
Yeah.
To make sure that should I get that call, I can hopefully be adaptable enough to sit there and not draw attention to myself in those regards. So that it's not about being the best in the room. It's about being pleasant to get along with and no one having a problem with the fact that you're there.
Yeah, that's great. So obviously blending, you get better at it as you're doing it and experiencing it, whatnot. Is there anything else you would say that, or how would you approach blending, or how did you approach blending, as your first kind of learning what that concept is and applying it to your playing?
I don't know, really. It's just been a part of my identity for so long. I don't even really think about it in that sense.
Sure, yeah.
Does the music sound appropriate? Are the people in charge complaining about how I'm playing it? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of about it, really. And it's obviously if we sit in more of the jazz, big bands, commercial side of things, I'm better known as a lead player. And so I know that sort of music pretty well. And so I'm comfortable and confident in doing that.
Right. Yeah.
But in one sense, what happens is that I get pigeonholed into that. And then the assumption is I wouldn't ever want to play in the section and not play lead. Whereas actually that's my happy place. I had a rehearsal a couple of weeks ago I was at where we were rehearsing for an upcoming gig, which I unfortunately had to bail on because some other work came in. And so we were switching around subs and it was the day before a rehearsal. I was like, I can still make it tomorrow, but figure out what your solution is for how you're going to cover the lead chair, whatever, which was what I was supposed to be doing. And as it happened, the fourth trumpet player had subbed out to one of the guys the leader liked to use on lead. So we just switched. And so I showed up at rehearsal and played fourth trumpet and blew a couple of jazz solos and had a nice time.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the band, the guy playing lead was like, I'm freaked out because you're sitting in the section. I'm like, well, don't be freaked out about that. I'm just sitting over here sucking on fourth trumpet. I'm trying to follow you.
Yeah.
And then everyone else is like, well, you play jazz solos. We didn't know you did that. Because they're so accustomed to me playing lead.
Yeah.
In the meantime, the leader was like, I've never seen you more relaxed. And I was like, no, this is great. This is my happy place. Like, leave me here all the time.
Great.
So that was a super fun thing to do. And to sit there and just take that different role in the section and just try and nail some stuff down and support the guys, well, the rest of the section who are all sitting above me in that sense.
Yeah.
It's not something I get to do as often as I might like. But I mean, when I sub Broadway, most often I'm playing second trumpet.
Yeah, well, that's a totally different animal than big band playing in some senses.
Well, yes and no. It's ensemble playing, and you've got to play things in a certain style and in a certain way. And some of those styles speak better to us than others.
Yeah.
You know, there's certain ones that I do where it goes very smoothly and it's always easy. There's others where the style is very specific, and maybe I've had experiences where the conductor didn't like how I played it, so I didn't get asked back. And as far as I was concerned, I parroted pretty well off the recording I was given for what the regular played it like.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can't please all of the people all the time. I felt solid in what I'd presented, so I'm not going to worry about that too much. If there's something going on there where somebody doesn't want to have you around for whatever reason they've decided.
Yeah.
That's, as long as I feel confident in what I've presented, then after that, it's not on me. And so I'm not going to dwell on that too much. I've got to let that wash off. I could sit around, as I've seen people do, saying, oh, I got canned from subbing on that gig. My life is over. And I'm like, no, there's lots of other gigs. We'll be all right.
Yeah.
Well, but I've been out here long enough now to be a little philosophical about that. So
sure, yeah. Well, that's what I'm looking for is You've been around. You know how it goes. You know what to expect. And so for people who don't know or have that like mentality, it's like, look, it's hearing that from you of like, you're fine. It's going to be okay. There's this. Like that's can be encouraging for some young players who might have
For
gone
sure.
fired off their first gig or their first show or whatever the case may be. Is like, don't worry. Like it's going to be okay.
Yeah,
So
but along with that, as you make that point, be self-aware enough to realize why you got canned from the gig, right?
Yep.
Did you play it well enough? Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. I mean, that goes on a situation by situation basis.
Sure.
And deep down, we know for ourselves whether that's true or not.
Yeah.
We've all had things we've gone into unprepared, and so maybe it didn't go as well as it could have gone, and so we have to go, fair enough. No, I wasn't good enough. I didn't do the work, and that wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
We've all had those moments, but I came to a realization some time ago that I'd spent so much time flying by the seat of my pants, running into gigs, reading them down, getting them done, because that's very much how we did it in the UK back in the day. I mean, I've been in the States for 16, almost 17 years now. So I've gotten used to how things are done here to a certain extent, but my roots still come through, which is we very rarely rehearse things. It was shut up and play it, right? And if you do that, there's a good chance you'll get called again.
Yeah.
And often with very little preparation. One of the gigs I did longest back then, I did a Rat Pack tour, which was the touring version of a West End show, like a Broadway show version of a Rat Pack concert. And I signed on for that for 4 months. I did it for 5.5 years. Like I got embedded in that thing, and it was great. It was a great time in my life.
Yeah.
But I walked in the first day I was doing it, effectively subbing the second trumpet book for a week with no advanced materials, no advanced nothing. Like show up, 20 minutes sound check, get it done. We're playing the show tonight.
Man.
And had 5 minutes to ask the lead player a few questions about just a couple spots, and likewise maybe with the music director, just to make it seem like I was interested as much as anything else. And then just show up and throw down and play the thing.
Yeah.
And so it went pretty well from the get-go, and so I got through the week, and then as it happened, it wasn't a week's replacement. They needed somebody, and they asked me if I could do it after they'd tried a couple other people. So I did 1 week, and then about 3 weeks later, went back and did some more. And then they were like, yeah, do you want to sign on? And I signed on for 4 months. And 5.5 years later, I got off. Yeah, started out as the second trumpet player. After a couple of years, became the lead player when the lead player who was in there left. And then wound up being the lead player on the US tour. So I got to get over here to play for the first times. And continued to do the European tour in between, and traveled entirely too much, which is kind of a theme of my life.
Yeah.
And would run back from the backwards and forwards from the States to Europe every 2 weeks.
Whew, that's a lot.
For 7 months at a time, and then be largely on the European tour and the off times from the US tour. It was kind of crazy. That was 20 years ago now we started doing that. But it was good. It was a great learning experience. You learn how to handle your business. You learn how to manage dealing with a lot of traveling, and a lot of it's just experiential. So
yeah,
in the course of that, I beat the heck out of my face and had to relearn how to play. But managed to do that while holding down 8 shows a week. So it was good. And now I've come out the other side of that stronger and pretty much ready for anything.
Yeah. What had happened with you there? Were you injured? Did you have to take time off, or I guess it doesn't sound.
I didn't really get to take any time off. I mean, basically, what happened to me is that I was playing completely inefficiently, and I just beat the heck out of my lips.
Yep.
It came to the point pretty much around this time of year, 20 years ago, where this was prior to the US tour becoming a thing. We were doing the European tour. We'd been off in Germany mostly for a few months earlier into 2006. And we came back and we were doing a UK run for a few months. And it so happened that 3 consecutive cities in the UK were either the town I lived in or immediately adjacent towns that you could get to in an hour or 90 minutes.
Okay.
And so I was at home for like a month, basically, and commuting every day, either just across town or to the next town 45 minutes away, or to a slightly further place, an hour and change away or whatever. But I was able to be at home and actually be in my house and sleep in my own bed and all that kind of stuff.
That's
Not
nice.
that there was much time for sleep in the end, because what happened was that everyone found out I was back. And so in addition to playing 8 shows a week, we had all kinds of rehearsals and recordings and projects and gigs on off days, because there was a few things that people were like, oh, great, Brian's back. We can do these things we've been putting off. And so I way overloaded my schedule. And I was a few months into now playing lead on the Rat Pack thing. And even that was, I was playing hard enough that if we had a double show day, I was in trouble.
Man.
And very often, particularly when we were in Europe, double show days would stack. So it was like you play a single Tuesday through Friday, and then you play double Saturday, double Sunday. And so second show any day, I'd be feeling it. And then second show, second day running, I'd be in trouble.
Yeah. Oh, so much.
And so the cracks were starting to show, and then I took entirely too much stuff on and beat the hell out of my lips. It came to a point, I had this kind of 4-week thing going on where I was just working every day and working 2 or 3 things every day. And I cut my lip on the first week. And so it never had an opportunity to heal. And so the scar is still there. And after a little while, it got to the point where it was just a big kind of open brown mark where my lip should have been, that didn't bleed anymore. Was just that there was absolutely no doubt about where the mouthpiece went, because there was a big old groove there.
Oh, man.
And we got through that and made it through. I think I managed to take maybe 1 day off in the middle, but I went through all the things that you've heard as apocryphal stories from people and stuff like this. I had some leftover medical super glue from when I had an injury on the road, which I'd kept just in case it came in handy, because you do when you're on the road. And so I glued it back together at one stage. That was a thing I wouldn't recommend doing. That was no fun. It bought me a couple days, but when it came apart again, it was very painful.
I'm sure.
There was that in there. And so I kind of limped through to the end of this month, and then we had a month off. And just at the end of that, they were like, US tour, you want to do the US tour? And I was like, yeah, I want to go to the US, because my now wife, we were already dating. We'd been on a tour together in Europe prior to that. And so I was like, great, I get to get over and see the young lady more often.
Yeah.
So I took that on and realized quickly when I got there, when we'd been doing the European tour and the UK tour, we always had our band. And so I was playing probably 2/3 of the lead, and there was strategic breakpoints built in and whatever. When we got on the US tour, we were carrying lead trumpet and rhythm section, piano, bass and drums. Piano player was the conductor sitting down front on the middle of the stage.
Yeah.
It was all an on-stage band and all that kind of stuff. And we got out there, and as I signed the contract, I realized I was signing up to play 100% of the lead.
Oh,
and
no.
I was already in trouble not playing 100% of the lead.
Dear.
And so the cracks started to show pretty quickly. I had a month off after the thing in the summer where we had vacation time, and I came out to the States to visit for a couple of weeks and stuff, and didn't bring a horn. Like, put it to one side. I was like, no, I'm not playing. I've got to let this heal.
Yeah.
And I think I took probably 3 weeks off the horn, and then had about a week, 10 days before I had to go again. So I picked it up and started easing it back in, and it more or less healed. It was basically okay, except we then got into this thing where we're States for 2 weeks, Europe for 2 weeks, States for 2 weeks, Europe for 2 weeks. And it's the second trip out. Made it through the first trip. Everything was basically okay. Came back, rejoined the European tour, did the thing. It was slightly more restful because I had the guys, to spread the load a little bit. Went back out, and on a Wednesday night in West Palm Beach, Florida, we'd had rehearsal Tuesday morning, as we did. We played the show Tuesday night, so that's a double.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
We're on stage Wednesday night, and we're playing a shout chorus towards the end of the first half, and my lip went pink. And literally burst and went straight back to what it had been 2 months before, when it was really messed up in one go and just showered blood everywhere. And when I say it went ping, it audibly went ping in a way that was heard above the band, because we got through playing the thing and the second trumpet player went, "What was that noise? What the hell happened to you?"
No.
Because then he saw me and I was just covered in blood, and there was blood running down the lead pipe of my horn, and there was all over my shirt. And we got through the end of the act, and I went off and got a fresh shirt from wardrobe and rinsed myself off and tidied everything up and went back and played the second half.
Man. Oh,
because what you're going to do?
yeah, man.
And but I was in bad shape.
Yeah.
And so, fortunately, that same second trumpet player was a good lead player and was able to help me out and understood the importance of trying to kind of play it my way. We'd already played a couple things. So you got a sense of what that was and where I was putting it, and surreptitiously split some lead with me for the rest of the week while I kind of pulled it back together. Limped through the following week and came up, and it was then Thanksgiving. And I was in New York for Thanksgiving visiting my then girlfriend, now wife. And through some contacts with folks in Florida who knew him, I managed to collar Roger Ingram for a lesson. Day before Thanksgiving 2006. And I'd wanted to get a lesson with Roger for a long time anyway, but I'd had a difficult time getting in touch with him to get it organized. So fine, these things happen. It's not like today where you can email anybody. It wasn't quite such a connected time. So it was just a little bit of but I got a hold of him thanks to some of the guys. They knew him and they had his number, and they called him up and they're like, listen, this guy's going to get in touch. He needs your help.
Yeah.
And he's on a gig, so he's got money. It's fine.
Yeah.
And managed to get a lesson. And I walked in the room, little practice room in the old Michiko studios here in New York. And he took one look at me and went, "Oh yeah, you play too hard, don't you?" And we sat for 2 hours and he laid out what I should be doing with air and breathing and what have you, and how to mitigate some of the stuff that I was dealing with. And so I came out with a plan. And he also sat across the room for me and pinged double high Ds in my face for a few minutes as well, just in case I had any questions. And and that's oddly convincing, it turns out, when your favorite lead player does that. And so that's how that went down. And so he set me off on a path. And I owe the simple fact that I'm still playing today is owed to Roger Ingram. Because without that intervention and that guidance at that time, I wouldn't have lasted the year.
Yeah.
I was so beat up and so messed up. But because of the path he put me on, I was able to rehab as I went and still play 8 shows a week.
Yeah.
And after a month or 6 weeks, got to the point where I wasn't hurting myself anymore, and then was able to switch up some equipment and make things even easier. And gradually just built and built. And so by the time we got through with the tour and I was next back over in the States for a vacation, I went to see him again. It was the following August, about 8 or 9 months later, and organized another lesson and went in there. And he was like, "Okay, so show me how it's going with the stuff we did last time." And I showed him. He was like, "Oh, good. You're the one who practiced." I had a vested interest in practice, and because I wanted to get over the stuff that I was dealing with, I was automatically convinced that I needed to make a change because I knew it wasn't sustainable.
Yeah.
And so I did the work, followed his advice to the letter, and put the thing in place. And in the course of that, gained a little extra on my range, but became bulletproof because I was so strong in my chops from trying to withstand everything, but simultaneously not understanding how air worked. So I was just messed up.
Yeah.
I was playing far too hard.
Yeah.
And we still see the throwbacks of that now. If anyone's ever seen any of the trumpet cam clips that I post or anything like that, when I'm playing in the upper register in particular, I have a pretty good neck swell going on. I mean, in the younger days, the first 20 years of my playing time, I blew all the barriers in here out, just blowing so hard.
Yeah.
And so that really expands. Believe it or not, it doesn't expand now as much as it used to. It's calmed down a lot, but it's still very noticeable.
Yeah.
But the reason I bring that up, I mean, I don't like to look at it. I don't enjoy the fact that it happens. Very occasionally, I feel it in a way that I don't like. But generally, it doesn't cause me problems. But having put so much stuff of me playing out there, the question I get very often is, how do I make my neck do that? Because that must be the secret to playing the way you play. And I'm like, do not. It's absolutely not necessary. It is not something to aspire to. It is... This shows that I hurt myself for a long time. And so that's mainly the reason I bring it up, because I don't want anyone else to do that.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, I've been not quite all the way there, but I tore my lip internally from pressure playing and stuff, and had to take 8 months off the horn and all kinds of stuff.
Right.
Eventually got back to it, but that was a big turning point for me. It was, let me learn how to actually play this thing instead of just muscle everything and force it, and it's made
Sure.
a big difference. And so it's, hopefully people don't have to go through something like that, especially to some of these extremes, but it's really helped me learn how to be a much better trumpet player at the same time.
Listen, everyone goes through something at some level, and the trick to all of this is making sure to learn from the experience, whatever the experience is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whether it's a good experience or a bad experience, there's still something to learn from it.
Yeah.
And so if we can continue doing that for the entirety of our lives, I think we're probably going to be in a pretty good place.
Yeah, absolutely. What a great story. Well, it's
a horrifying story, but it's useful, I think, for people to hear, because there's this overwhelming kind of feeling within the trumpet community, and this has been the case for decades and decades, is that there's an acceptable level of pain that we should all expect to deal with. And I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I've been so far down that rabbit hole that I just don't buy it. It's not right. If you're hurting yourself playing in that way, there is something incomplete about how you're approaching what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
It's not that things are necessarily wrong. It's just that you're missing a piece of the puzzle.
Right.
In some cases, things will be wrong. But that's not the default that I go to. You're not necessarily playing wrong. But if you're hurting yourself, you're missing something.
Yeah.
And so what I spend a lot of my time doing now, and this was kind of the point of doing my various video series a few years ago, which I'm just getting back into doing again now, is that there's a lot of pedagogy out there. There's a lot of stuff that's taught. And I think increasingly we're further and further away from the lifetimes of a lot of the great teachers that this stuff is based upon. And so it's an ever-increasing game of telephone with what their intention was to what people are presenting.
Yeah, I could totally see that. Totally hear that.
And again, it's not that it's not well-intentioned.
You're right.
I'm not saying that anyone's deliberately doing a bad job or anything like that. It's that maybe the person or two generations before where they heard a certain thing was missing a little something, so then the next person missed a little something more, and then you miss a little something more. So by the time you pass it on to your students, there's just a big something missing.
Yeah.
And so what I spend a lot of my time dealing with is what a lot of the methods teach, so I can recontextualize things.
Yeah. And
what I've realized in so doing is that actually everybody's trying to say the same thing.
Yeah, I think that too. Like there's different methods with stamp and Bellata. There's so many great pedagogues out there, but I feel like, they're all saying the same thing in a different way, but it's all the same thing.
Largely is. And of course, there's nothing new under the sun. I'm never claiming to create anything. Sure. I'm just trying to be a bit of a trumpet technique archaeologist, as it were.
Yeah.
And just kind of brush away some of the stuff off the top and realize what they were actually getting towards.
Yeah, that's cool.
And so that's what I spend a lot of my time doing, and so I can best support my students when I teach.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. Just going. I like that analogy of trumpet archaeology. It was like, what did they teach, and how was it taught? Like that's cool. And so so how do you approach that research, and what do you do, and how do you implement it into your teaching? Like what do you
a lot of the research is trying to find people who actually studied with the person.
Yeah.
Or get further up I guess you might call it the generational ladder.
Yeah.
To get closer to them, to find out what the explanations of things actually were. And then as you hear what the words were, you can start to peel away why they were the words. A great example is the teaching of Claude Gordon. Now, a lot of this comes down to breathing, and so we'll get into this just very briefly. But one of the most famous things that people subscribe to is Claude Gordon's breathe with your chest high. Now, why is this an instruction? Because to us, our time of where we are now, that doesn't really mean anything.
Yeah.
But to the generations of people that he was directly personally teaching, it meant something. Now, why was that? Because almost everybody Claude Gordon will have taught from the 50s through to the mid-70s, The vast majority of them had been through military service.
Interesting.
Because of the draft.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Folks have been in the Second World War, folks have been in the Korean War, folks have been in Vietnam.
Yeah.
What you're going to learn in that situation is what's the most famous strengthening exercise that we know about the military that we see in every piece of media, movie or TV or whatever about the military.
Push-ups, right?
Well, there's push-ups, but why do they always have to do push-ups? Because they got yelled at for not standing up straight on the parade ground.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's always, no, cadet, stand up straight. You don't do it, drop and give me 20.
Yeah.
That's a consistent theme through like decades and decades of films about people in the military.
Yeah, okay.
Right? We've all seen that kind of thing. But now, this came to me from my late grandfather, who had been in the Second World War. And in his later years, about almost 20 years ago, he had quite bad dementia and he was in an assisted living place and wasn't especially close to where I lived, but I would gig down in that area sometimes. So I would go and see him comparatively regularly.
Sure.
And because he had dementia, when I would go and see him, sometimes he knew it was me. Sometimes he figured I was my dad. Sometimes I was just one of the guys from the troop when he was in the war.
Yeah.
And so on one of those occasions, he did play in a band out there. He was a cornet player.
Oh, cool.
And so when I would go and see him at the facility, I would often, after the first couple of times, they figured out that I was a musician. So sometimes I would take backing tracks and I would go and play for the recreation room. Just a short little set, just some nice tunes, some music for people to enjoy. And then I'd go and visit with Grandad for a bit and then I'd get on my way.
Yeah.
And so I'm doing that and I'm sitting with him, we're talking about stuff, and he was still able to play. And if he was in the right kind of time period frame of mind, he would want to play. And so I'd hand it to him and he'd play a little bit, and he was great for about a minute and a half before his face gave up because he was in his 90s and that wasn't a thing anymore.
Yeah.
And it was decades since he'd played because he stopped playing probably in the 60s or something like that.
Yeah.
We're sitting there one day and I'm standing there playing and I get through and I go and sit down and I'm talking to him and he was like, "What have I told you?" I said, "Oh, what do you mean? What have you told me?" He said, "You've got to stand up straight." What that is, you've got to stand up straight and so you can still have your posture. Otherwise, you're going to have to do all those push-ups. And so we got into it a little bit. And what he was telling me is that that's the posture. And what you learn when you're on the parade ground is that you've got to stand often for many hours in a very straight up and down position with your core engaged. And that's a training technique. It strengthens your entire body because it leaves you strong and it leaves you in your most agile state to be able to move.
Interesting. Okay.
And so for people of that generation, breathe with your chest high, man, have that good posture, be able to maintain that good posture and breathe freely because you might have to stand there for an hour or two.
Wow.
If the drill sergeant is feeling particularly sadistic that day. And so that in itself becomes an instruction. Now, it's not very meaningful to us necessarily.
Yeah.
Particularly for those of us, I've never served in the military. All respect to those people who have. Absolutely. Thank you for your service. Personally, I haven't done that. I've just followed kind of the breadcrumbs of this enough to realize that that's what that is.
Yeah.
And once I employed that and put those puzzle pieces together, then I was a little bit further along. So those are the kind of little things that I always look for.
Yeah. That's fascinating.
You know, so there's lots of examples of that, of how we explaining things. And so if you think about it, by the time Claude Gordon's books were published, what is he going to put in there? He's going to put in the thing that he said to students that had the best traction.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if that's one of the things, then, and that was meaningful to a whole bunch of people, then he's going to put it in the book.
Yeah.
It makes total sense. But it's meaningless to us.
Yeah.
And it switches around the entire deal because it makes you breathe properly. If you understand that that means engage your core before you breathe and make sure that that stays set so you can breathe up and down into your chest. There's no belly in there. You don't see any belly in those people when they're breathing because they're going to have to do a whole bunch of push-ups, which is then an additional core strengthening exercise to get them to not push their belly out.
Yeah. Wow. Crazy.
Interesting things that you wouldn't necessarily think about once you put the context back in there.
Yeah.
And so I was able to find a couple of people who actually coincidentally came to me for lessons because they were working through some stuff who had studied with Claude Gordon. So I was able to confirm that.
Wow. Oh, that's so cool. Wow.
And they go, no, that's what that was all about. Great. We're gradually putting the pieces of the puzzle back together. So this is what I'm fascinated by doing, and what I spend a lot of my time trying to deal with, is what's the missing context in instructions that don't make a tremendous amount of sense.
Yeah. Wow. Have you ever?
Superficially these days.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Are you going to write a book with all that put in there sometime?
I mean, I may do, but this is more about just reinforcing stuff for teaching. Because, like I say, when a student comes to me, I say, particularly if they've been to college or something like that, it's usually the same things that are missing, as far as I'm concerned. But I'm like, okay, which method have you studied from most? Right?
Yeah.
Is it Claude Gordon? Is it Stamp? Is it Bill Adam? Is it based on a lot of Bobby Shew stuff, which is, Bobby's still around, so we still get that context from Bob.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that's one of the great blessings of this period that we're in, is that Bobby's here.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's not going to be forever. And so it's important to realize the people who have also directly studied with Bobby and gotten deep on that stuff with him, so that the correct information is still out there.
Yeah.
And so I've had the opportunity to speak to Bobby a couple of times, but I still actually need to book in and take a proper lesson with him.
Yeah, me too.
And we should all remember to not miss that opportunity, because he seems like he's pretty good at the moment, but it's not going to be forever. Yeah. He's in his 80s now, so not to be morbid about it. And sorry, Bobby, if you happen to watch this, I'm not wishing you gone by any means, but it's just the reality of the situation at some point.
Sure. You know? Yeah, definitely.
So,
wow. So
so that's what I'm trying to deal with, and trying to recontextualize some of these things and put them together, so then we can help people fill in the gap.
Yeah. I love it. If you ever come up with a method, I don't want to say a method book, but some sort of like resource where you've compiled all this stuff, definitely let me know, because I'll buy it. I'd like that's something I'd love.
Cool. We got a pre-order. Excellent. We can keep this going.
Yep. Yep. First customer right here. I'll take it. So kind of going back a little bit, kind of just to understand more of like kind of this teaching context too. At what point did you decide to move to the States, and why?
Well, I moved to the States because my wife's from here, and she likes it when I live in the same place as her.
That's fair.
That in this modern day and age, that may be a minority opinion, but she digs it, so that's okay. And we did the long distance thing for about 9 years.
It's a long time.
Just waiting for immigration as much as anything else and stuff like that. So we were first together. We met on a tour we were doing together in Germany back at the very end of the last millennium, back in 99. And so we've been together for 27 years this year, I think.
Yeah.
And so the first 9 years, we would occasionally do tours together for maybe half a year and try and organize that so we could spend some time and work together and that kind of stuff. But then we'd have a lot of time in between when we weren't. When I was doing the Rat Pack, she would come visit a lot, or I would come visit her on off weeks. But I was basically gone the entire time.
Yeah.
But everything hung in, and we learned how to communicate really well. And so now we have a great time, because when we're together, we get on great. We know what it's like to not be together, but also we have all the coping strategies for when we're not together, because we did it for so long.
Yeah.
We're great at communicating and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, that's not to get on my low-key marriage guidance secondary thing.
It's another podcast.
That's a whole different podcast right there. But anyway, so we did that for a long time. So I've been here since 2009. And what was interesting about that is that it was with the intention of never playing.
Really?
I got here, I had 3 months of work status, and I had some gigs, the leftover bits of the Rat Pack tour that had a couple more dates in the States. And so I was able to fulfill those up to Christmas time. I moved in October. The gigs went through the end of the year. And then sometime in January, my statutory work status, the first 3 months for immigration ran out. And so I'd made my application, and I'd gotten married, which was one of the provisos of my particular visa and all this kind of stuff. We'd done all the things, but the immigration department takes as long as it takes. And so then I waited 6 months before I had work status.
Man.
6, 7, 8 months. So, it wasn't until later in the summer. And then that came, and it was another couple of months before my first green card arrived.
Yeah. What did you do at that time?
Well, I quickly realized that I wasn't going to be able to do anything. I had savings and stuff, and I'd sold my house in England before I moved and all that kind of stuff. So I had a little money and it was fine. So it was just, I had some time off. And in the course of that, I put the horn down because there was no point in playing because I didn't have any place to go. And I was like, well, let me make sure everything's healed finally after that thing a few years before. And so I put the horn down, and in the event, I put the horn down for very close to a year.
Okay.
And it was great. Oh, it was fantastic.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
And I learned to live like a real person.
Yeah.
You know, we would go, my new wife and I would go to dinner on a weekend night.
Yeah, that doesn't happen too often.
Musicians out there, you know that doesn't happen.
Doesn't.
Right? That's when you're working. That's prime time.
Mm-hmm. It is.
How often is date night a Monday? It will pretty much always, because you're working the other nights of the week, right? Or something similar to that. And so it was very freeing for that. And it was also very freeing because I'd always been, or very often been, union rep, contractor's assistant on the road, in-house contractor, assistant company manager, something like this on the various tours I'd done for the previous 9 years.
Yeah.
There was always some version of that, whether it was official or unofficial, where it was always my job to play trumpet and be shouted at by people. You know, I was most often ended up being the conduit for people who had some kind of grievance to get back to management. And that's a miserable existence.
Yeah.
And so that became very intertwined in what I was dealing with. And so even though the playing stuff was going great on its own, I was done with the business.
Yeah.
I was so done. So at that point, while I had that time off, my other thing I'd always liked to do for a while was mess with computers. And I was a hobbyist building websites. And so I did some qualifications in that, online qualifications or whatever, but got a couple of like kind of minor league diplomas and stuff.
Yeah.
And then when I was able to work, I took a job building websites. And I did that for 6
Nice.
and had that year off from playing the horn, got back into it because one of the last things I'd done before I moved was a recording with Thomas Gansch from one of his groups in Austria.
Mm-hmm.
And so he called me up and he was like, we're doing a record release. The record was coming out that we'd just done before I left. So you've been playing? I was like, yeah, sure. And well, it's in like 3 months. Can you come and do it? We'll book the tickets. And I was like, yeah, great. Okay, great. Are we playing any different music? No, we're just playing the music from the record. Perfect. Great. I know what that is.
Yeah.
And I picked the horn out of the closet that day.
Wow.
I think I've told Thomas this story often enough now because I totally lied to him when he said, have you been playing? And I was like, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
And so I picked it up. 3 months later, went out and sat playing lead with Guns N' Roses, one of his groups, with Thomas in the section with Adam Rapper.
That's a second.
So you better show up and make sure some stuff's right.
Yeah.
Right. And so it came back pretty quickly, but fortunately I knew what the music was because I realized quickly when I tried other things that I couldn't read anymore. That was the thing that fell out of my brain, was reading music.
Man. Of all the things.
Yeah. And so it happened right around that same time as I was getting my stuff back together that there was a rehearsal band here in New York. Just a thing at the Union on Wednesday nights for a bunch of hobbyists who be musicians at some point or another, but everyone had like real jobs and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We would have this rehearsal band on a Wednesday night, and their lead trumpet player happened to be leaving, and I'd subbed it one time and when I was first visiting. And so the guy called me up and said, you want to come join this band? And I was like, yeah, I've been playing. That sounds like fun, actually. And so I did that for several years as well. And so I'd just go and play on a Wednesday night. And then that was at the Union. So once in a while, I'd get over there early and then be meeting someone who was leaving from the Union after picking up a check or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And someone I knew from before or whatever. And ran into a couple of different people that way who recognized me from my previous life as a musician when they'd been in the UK or whatever. And we're like, you're here now, you're playing? Great. Can you come sub this thing? And so gradually I got into subbing some things and ended up subbing quite regularly with Arturo Farrell's orchestra.
Okay.
From about 2012 on. And did sub there for about 4 years. And then there was an opening in the section, took the gig on in 2016 and playing third trumpet in Arturo's band, which was great.
Nice.
Went all over the place, did a bunch of records, won a couple of Grammys. It was a fabulous time.
Yeah.
And I did that for about 9 years in the band. So
good long
That
time.
was great, but then it was time to move on. And so I stopped at the end of 2024. So I've been out of that band for a little while now. But when I started subbing now, that was a serious situation. So that's when I started kind of practicing again.
Mm-hmm.
And because often, particularly to begin with, I would most often get called to play lead.
Yeah.
Yeah, to sub the lead book. So that was the whole thing. And so that was when I was like, if this is going to happen, even at all regularly, I actually need to practice now. And that got me back into it. And then gradually people would get to see me doing that. And then, oh, you want to do this thing? You want to do this thing? Or people from that band would need a sub someplace else. And so I kind of found my way back into it. And when I joined the band in 2016, I quit the day job and went back to being a musician full time.
Wow. That's crazy. And cool at the same time. I feel like sometimes, like, at least myself as like young player, it's like, oh, all these players and people that I talk to and people I look up to, it's like they've always had it easy as a musician, and like they just can do everything, and it's always been music and whatnot. But it's cool to hear that like you had a time where you just were off music for a little bit, and not of any fault of your own. You're just like, I'm done for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's great. Like, I think that's great for a young musician to hear, is that like if that happens, or if that's what you want to do at some point, like that's okay. You don't have to feel like that you have to be a musician all the time because that's what everybody's done. And if everybody's story and situation is different, but I think it's like a little bit, at least for me, it's a little freeing to be like, oh yeah, you don't have to just play trumpet and you're going to be your whole life. Like, you can move on for a little bit and come back, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, and so, but I think it also highlights the importance, particularly in this day and age, of maintaining something else you're interested in or something else you can do.
Yeah.
The skills and the discipline of practicing and being a musician are absolutely transferable, but you've got to have something to transfer them to,
mm-hmm.
right? The way we know how to learn, the way we know how to work hard, because it's just the default state for someone who plays an instrument at a high level, is you have to have that. It doesn't happen any other way.
Yep.
You've got to put the hours in the practice room, and you've got to be disciplined enough to spend that time.
Yeah.
Right. And disciplined enough in what you're doing and seeking advice from people and what have you to, like I say, we got to continually try and keep learning, because if we stagnate, then we're done.
Yeah.
And so that's the other side to all the stuff I try and fill in the gaps on. I just want to, it's partly to reinforce that what I'm going towards is right, because I can find other examples where once I contextualize it properly, I realize that what other people are saying is the same thing I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
In one sense, it's digging deeper into my own bubble, but seeking validation for that thing from the work that's gone before.
Mm-hmm.
But always trying to just move the needle a bit and understand a little bit better and play a little bit better and what have you, and keep that going. But if it were to all come crashing down tomorrow, well, something happened, I had an accident, there are other things I can do. I can get back into building websites. I could, through doing videos on YouTube, I've learned to be a fairly competent video editor. I could become a great video editor with a little more time and a little more practice. I could totally do that. And that appeals, the workflow of that and sitting and having to spend the time doing it appeals to my brain in a kind of flow state way, in the same way that practicing does. Right. I'm very well equipped to have the patience to sit and do repetitive tasks and get into the small details. And so now, I'm not someone who's ever spent a lot of time writing music and doing arrangements and things like that. I can competently do it if I'm called upon, but it's not something I sit and do for pleasure. But actually, I absolutely could if I wasn't able to play. And that could be a musical outlet for me. What I discovered, I was at jazz camp last week teaching out in Omaha with Willie Maria and a whole bunch of people. I had Willie on here before. And as I was sitting footling around at a piano one day, I realized actually I'm not competent enough to go and play in time with everybody, but I actually have basic piano skills on a reasonably good level. And so that would be something I could definitely learn to play piano at a decent level if I needed to. And while I'm able to play trumpet, that probably won't happen, because I won't take the time, because I'm busy doing a lot of other things. I probably should take the time, because I could learn something and continue that whole ethos I'm talking about. But for right now, I don't see that being in the cards necessarily.
Right.
But it's something that's very possible for me. So in that sense, I'm not scared of that going away.
Yeah.
It would lead to a difficult period where I was figuring some stuff out. But then after that, I'd totally be able to get it back together.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And potentially even be a musician on a different instrument.
Yeah. And I think that's so cool. And having that mindset and just like that openness of like, it's not trumpet or nothing. It was like, yeah, I'd be okay to jump to anything else if circumstances made it so. Like, for being open to anything,
I'm not trying to quit playing the trumpet anytime soon, because I've come back to it and I have a different relationship with it now to what I used to have, and a different relationship to the business.
Yeah.
When I kind of finally came out of retirement and became a working musician again full time, my deal with myself and my deal with my wife as well was, she was like, "You remember how miserable certain things used to make you?" I was like, "Yeah." And so here's the deal. I play things that I like. I'll play anything once. If I don't like it, I won't do it again after the initial thing that I'm committed to. And so all the things that I do now are gigs that I enjoy.
That's great.
And if I was willing to do anything, I could make a lot more money than I do, but I do fine, and I'm happy.
Yeah.
Which is not to be underestimated.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, as much as I could juggle around 2 or 3 extra things and make it big in the wedding band scene or something like that, I don't particularly enjoy playing that, so I don't do it.
Yep.
If there's a big band wedding or something like that, and the band leaders who do those, they know me, they'll call me, and love to. Big band, that's fun.
Yeah.
Top 40 music where I've got to make up lines because we're not really sure what's going on and we never know what key we're going to be in, and the hours are lousy and you get shouted at for being too noisy. Not so much.
Yep, I know those, yeah.
And again, that's not to say that that's a bad sort of gig to do. Not at all. Sure. It's a great way to make money.
Yeah.
And there's some extremely, extremely good wedding bands. I'm not trying to cast aspersions on the industry as a whole. I personally don't particularly enjoy it, so I don't do it.
Yeah.
That's all. I feel like at every point with anything that I say, I have to make some kind of disclaimer because people get so precious about things. But it's...
Yeah.
But that's kind of the situation. And so people know that. And once in a while, I'll get called to sub one, and once in a while, if it's a good band, I'll go do it and help my friends out and that kind of thing. But generally, it's not something I do.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's like... So, well, you've got
but that's part of the thing about being adaptable and being able to do it pretty much anything.
Yeah. Well, it's like when you get to a certain point, like, yeah, when you can do anything, but yeah, it's like you said, I could make more money, do more stuff, but I could also be happier and do just the things I want to do. And you've got to a point in your career where you can comfortably do that, and that's great. And so,
I mean, there's still lean months, and it's not all sunshine and roses, but it's in certain ways I travel too much. But the vast majority of what I do, I love to go do. So I'm happy to do the traveling.
Yeah, definitely.
And sometimes things get booked a little ahead of time, so I don't get to necessarily get in everything I prefer to do. One of my favorite things to do is to go to schools and work with college bands and things like that, and be able to help people recontextualize some of the stuff that they're dealing with through classes and master classes and workshops and what have you, and then play some high notes and play pretty for the people.
Yep. Yeah.
So that's always a great time, but I get to do that in lots of other gigs as well, because I'm very fortunate to be on the road now with Blood, Sweat and Tears, with the Duke Ellington Orchestra, with Charlie Rosen's 8-Bit Big Band. We do an increasing amount of tour dates every year, and that gets me around the country a lot. I was fortunate to get to play Kelly Clarkson's band for a couple of months at the beginning of the year, filling in for a friend of mine who was out sick.
Yeah.
And different things like that. So I get to do these incredibly fun gigs.
Yeah.
And I have to travel a lot to do it, but I get to play this amazing music when I get there. So it's very cool.
Yeah. Well, if you ever come out to Utah, let me know, because it would be great to meet up with you in person and talk.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I transit through the airport all the time.
Yeah.
A connection point in Salt Lake. So if I'm coming out west.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. Well, we've been talking for a while here. I don't want to hold you too much longer. I just wanted to ask a couple other things. With your whole YouTube series and airflow music and stuff, like, how did that get going? What did you do when you got started? And Like, is it profitable? Is it more just for fun? It kind of just that whole side of what people know you for. Like, how does that play into your career?
I mean, that's an important part of that's as much about visibility as anything else. Airflow Music started because I wrote the combination drills book.
Mm-hmm.
Those were exercises that had gone over real well with students and were helping people. And so I put it together in a more formalized collection and then had a couple of brief conversations with a couple of publishers who like, we don't care. And I was just coming off of the back of having had a job in web design. So I knew I could build a website. And I was like, well, why don't I just publish this thing?
Yeah.
There's plenty of ways to do that. There's plenty of ways to get books printed if people want printed rather than digital and sell both. And so I built the website and figured out what ISBN numbers are and all that kind of stuff and the basics of what a publishing business needs to look like. And I put it up. And so the first combination drills book was published in March of 2017. It's been out for 9 years now.
Yeah.
And subsequently, up to about 2020, 2021, I've got 6 titles altogether now. Yeah. So, as you can see, my camera's gone out. Sorry, everything's overheated. It's a slightly warm day here in New York today. So, hopefully I can get it going again in a second. But yeah, Airflow Music, I put the first book out in 2017. And then in 2018, it occurred to me that some videos reinforcing some stuff might be a good thing. And so that's when I learned how to do that.
Yeah.
I did it as I went. Literally, I had the idea, made the first video in about February of 2018, and that was that was letter A in the Trumpet A to Z series that I did on YouTube, and made it through the entire alphabet. I think without skipping a week. Maybe I had to take an extra 1 week break in the middle somewhere, but generally I went straight through and for half a year did that. And got inside making the videos a little bit and figured out how to do it relatively quickly and got into that kind of writing things habit and what have you.
Yeah.
And got the exercise of the week thing going along with that. And so gradually there was 6 titles that made their way into the ranks of the books. There's 2 volumes of combination drills. There is 2 volumes of what I call the Twisted Technical Studies, which are odd meter versions on Clark 2, basically.
Okay.
Lots of 7/8 in that book because it's nothing difficult about 7/8, but it's confusing enough for your brain typically if you mostly play in groups of 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And so that's a useful thing just for getting fingers going and all that kind of stuff. There's a thing called finger flexes, which was a series of exercises I wrote for one of my students who was getting over a botched hand surgery and putting his fingers back together. And then the exercise of the week book, which was the first 30 exercises from the Exercise of the Week series. And at some point, I need to put out the second book with the last 34 that got made before that kind of closed down by the pandemic. And then along the way, there's been all kinds of different stuff and Go Practice Daily and stuff like that. There's lots of exercises out there. So I've got 5 or 6 half-finished books that I need to get to at some point, but I've been busier playing since the pandemic. So, time's a factor in that and sitting down and getting enough of I'd much rather spend time playing and teaching and actually speaking to people than trying to write stuff down and notate things. So it gets put on the back burner a little bit. But in terms of profitability, it ends up being profitable because that's where my teaching runs through.
Mm-hmm. Which makes sense.
And so I make money teaching and people come and find me because they see me on the videos. And so they get to know that I'm out there doing it. And so I have a relatively small amount of regular students in the studio, but I see a bunch of people every week who come once or twice. Basically, because once I fix them up with what they need, sometimes in person if they're visiting New York and sometimes online.
Okay.
And then at a certain point, they're either not interested in what I have to say because it's too different, or I fix the problem that they were having and they don't feel like they have the need to come back, which is fine either way. I would much rather spread the word to a larger number of people rather than see the same. I mean, I'd be delighted to see the same 20 people every week. It'd be great, but that's not necessarily the thing. This is about getting good information out there. And that was the whole point of the videos as well.
Yeah.
Couple of different characters making videos at a certain point when I started doing it who had a very toxic approach to things. And we shall mention no names or initials, but I think we all know who we're talking about. And so I was just determined to try and put something out that was a little more sensible, a little more common sense, and a little more, didn't need to be so macho about it or so toxic about things.
Yeah.
We're all working on stuff. We all have to be a little reasonable and give ourselves a little grace to get through it. And we're all by nature very impatient when it comes to playing trumpet. So that's what I feel like I'm out here to do, is to try and just spread a little common sense, spread a little good humor in it, and let's have a nice time trying to figure it out.
Yeah, 100%. That's what we're all trying to do. Figure out how to do it. Figure out how it works and whatnot. So yeah. Well, and I think just last question: is there anything now that you wish you would have known when you were younger?
Yeah, I wish I'd caught up with somebody at the right time who was able to explain to me what air was for.
Yeah.
As a quick aside, one of the things I did when I was learning to play was I was a singer as well. And I found out when she later passed that my singing teacher was an opera singer at one stage, and I got actually some reasonably serious training in vocals and when I was a little kid. And so if I had followed my instinct and continued to breathe like I was singing, there goes the camera again, never mind. We're not going to get away with it. If I'd followed my instincts and stuck with the breathing I was doing for singing, rather than what my trumpet teacher had misinterpreted, then I might not have hurt myself in the same way.
Yeah.
And I might have gotten a little bit further along. But then without that experience, I probably wouldn't have ended up teaching as much as I do.
Yeah.
So these things all happen for a reason. We end up where we're supposed to be, doing what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, definitely.
And so I love to spend time thinking about this stuff and messing with things and trying stuff out and tinkering with trumpet playing now that I'm kind of far enough along to be able to devote a little time to that, as well as keeping everything together for working.
Yeah.
So that's what I spend a lot of time doing, and that's what I love to do. So I think everything happens for a reason. Probably wouldn't be in quite the same position now if everything had gone better with the breathing thing.
Yeah.
Things work out the way they're supposed to.
They do. Yeah, 100%. I'm a big believer of that. And yeah, well, thank you again so much, Bryan, for taking so much time out of your day to chat with us about your experience with the trumpet, your career, and the things all your advice. It's been so great to just be able to talk and hear all of that from you. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me. And sorry about the camera.
Yeah, no worries. It's all good. So I appreciate it again, and we'll let you know when that interview's out. And yeah, thank you.
Awesome. I look forward to it. And let me know when the book's coming as well. I'd love to read some stuff.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Awesome. You take care, Jed. Great to
Thanks.
talk to you.
You too, Bryan. See ya.
See you later.